Thank you, Mr. Kent. Next up for 7 minutes, Mr. Angus.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. McKay, for coming back. The Prime Minister, when Sidewalk Labs was announced, he did say that he had been discussing this idea of a smart city with Google for a number of years. How did the conversations begin with the Prime Minister's office and Google about moving forward on a smart cities initiative?
I'm not sure. I think those conversations, he must have been referring to the leadership of Alphabet when he referred to Google, and Alphabet itself. Sidewalk was explicitly built to pursue projects like this.
Okay.
So
Eric Schmidt, he had said that Google had been looking for someone to give us a city for some time and to put us in charge. So would the Sidewalks Lab fit that model of a city that Google could be in charge of?
I heard those comments from Eric Schmidt as well, and I think he was generalizing a broader intent to see how technology could be used to improve and develop an urban area in integrating technology.
Okay. He also said that for this project to succeed, they would need, quote, substantial forbearances from existing laws and regulations. I've never seen a real estate development plan on a waterfront where the developers came and said they wanted to be exempt from Canadian law. So with Eric Schmidt's comments, could you tell us what Google would think would be important to exempt them from law in order to make a smart cities project go through?
I can't speak to the details of what Sidewalk is intending. I can make observations around the development of telecommunications in Canada and railway and internet access, where...
We're talking about Eric Schmidt, founder of Google, who said for this project to succeed, they expect that this government will exempt them from existing laws and regulations. What would those laws and regulations be? I mean, everyone else has to follow the laws. Why not Google?
I'm not privy to Sidewalk's plans or conversations, so I can't speak to that.
Okay. Yeah, but this is Eric Schmidt, right? Saying this?
I think I've read the same newspaper article you have.
Okay.
So. CEO, not the founder.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm never good with my corporate structure.
Yeah.
So, but I want to just ask more about this idea, because you talk about transparency, but if the Prime Minister had been speaking with Google for a number of years on this plan, was the idea that this would ever be put up to competitive bidding, or was this going to be a project for Google and an experiment for Google in the Toronto waterfront?
Once again, I can't talk to the Prime Minister's process, but I understand. I thought that Waterfront Toronto actually had a request for information that was a competitive process.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Toronto real estate's more expensive than Brooklyn. So Sidewalk Labs gets 12 acres of some of the most prime real estate in North America. I mean, people would be chomping at the bit for this. And yet the request for directions for this project was 40 days. Nobody could compete in a 40-day turnaround to get this. But if Google had had long prior conversations, it would suggest that the fix was in. So it would be in Google's corporate interest, certainly, to get this access to this major real estate development, would it not?
You'd have to speak to Waterfront Toronto about how many expressions of interest they had for the RFI.
Right, but 40 days, don't you think that would be... I mean, if you were going to build a smart city, you were going to do high-tech, this was going to be something Dan Doctorow says is going to take 15 or 20 years, and you'd think that anybody put that out for 40 days? That would be kind of ridiculous to think that anybody else other than Google would be able to compete, right? I'm just trying to get a sense of how these big mega projects are done.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to what Waterfront Toronto knew or didn't know and what fed into their decision-making process.
Okay. You know, we certainly had the resignation of Anne Kavukian, who I think carries a lot of respect. Sadia Muzaffar, who resigned, said that this project shows a, quote, blatant disregard for residents' concerns about data and digital infrastructure. There's nothing innovative about city building that disenfranchises its residents in insidious ways and robs valuable earnings out of public budgets. This does reflect on Google. Do you think that there may be a better way of engaging with the public on a project that is this incredibly valuable in terms of real estate, but also sending a symbol of what Google plans?
The fact that we're having a conversation today means that it does reflect on Alphabet and the sister companies, including Google. However, from what I've seen as a bystander, Waterfront Toronto and Sidewalk Toronto are engaging publicly on these issues. And this is part of that dialogue.
Yeah, it was interesting because when the plan was put forward, and so we're talking real estate governance. I know that's not your area of expertise, but I mean, 12 acres. When it was brought to the Waterfront Real Estate Committee, they were made aware that this is not just 12 acres. This is potentially the whole Portland. So this is an extremely valuable chunk of real estate to turn over. They were given 3 days to look at this, but when it actually got to the vote, it was presented as a fait accompli. I mean, how do we reassure the public that we're doing world-class infrastructure if you're turning over massive amounts of extremely valuable real estate with such little oversight? And Google thanks the Prime Minister saying they've been looking for someone to give them a city to be in charge of. Don't you think Google could have done a better job of talking with Sidewalk Labs to reassure that this is being vetted in a proper manner?
I'm sorry to be repetitive, but this was a decision-making process by Waterfront Toronto, and the process that they followed was under their own control. So.
Yeah, apparently they've moved a whole new committee to handle the real estate deals outside of the committee that was raising the flags. But I'm going to finally ask on IP because it says that the contracts for Sidewalk are being structured with consultants and vendors so that Sidewalk, Alphabet, Google will own or have worldwide royalty-free license to any IP that's being developed out of this project. Is that in the public interest, or is that going to be in the interest of Eric Schmidt, Google, Alphabet, to have that kind of IP control over anything that's developed out of what is a public project?
I'm afraid I saw the same report you did, but I wasn't involved in the process, and I haven't seen the documents.
I mean, you are their Google spokesman. Do you get briefed on this stuff?
As I said, Sidewalk Toronto is an independent company that's pursuing its own business and working with the government independently.
Thank you.
Thank you.